What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Modern Craftsman. This week we have an interior designer on the podcast. Something a little bit different. Michael Ferzoco owns a firm here in Boston, Massachusetts. We have worked together in the past. He started his career in, was it finance?
Finance, I think you said, yeah.
Finance, and then went to France. Basically, came back and said, "Screw this! I want to be an interior designer." Something he set out to do when he was a kid. His dad
Yeah.
actually talked him out of it. But talks about you know really honing into the market that he really wanted to be in and understanding what that meant from even from a financial standpoint. And we dig into money in the sense of like the evil that behind it, but also the reality of how important it is. Of course, being a profitable business, but also how you can attract some of the higher end clientele if that's the clientele you are going after.
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation because it's not his first career. He made that career change. So by the time he started this business, he was, I think he said late 30s, early 40s, and he was kind of starting off at ground zero and establishing this business and didn't really have that much experience doing this. So it was interesting to hear kind of how he took his business and grew his business and what was important to him at 40 something rather than a lot of the people that we speak with who start their businesses much earlier. So it was a good perspective that was different. A lot of generalities, life, business. But it was just interesting to hear somebody where it was kind of their second career getting into this.
Well, you own an interior design firm in Boston.
Correct.
Uh, we have worked together.
Yep.
But why don't you give a little bit of a background for those that don't know who you are?
So, about 15 plus years ago, I started this firm. I left a firm that I was working for, a high end luxury residential design firm, and thought, hey, I can do this on my own. It looked like a lot of fun and games, right? And somebody else was making a hell of a lot more money than I was as his employee. Um, so I started this design firm in my apartment, 11 interiors, and it was actually named after a store that I had for a while, a home furnishings and design store. Um, we do high-end luxury residential renovation, construction, right down to the decoration and pillows on the sofa. So soup to nuts. You've worked with us before, Nick, and you know the caliber of what we do and the level of detail that goes into it. Um, the drawings that we provide, the specifications that we provide. We collaborate obviously with high-end custom builders like you and architects, and we get in there and we like to own the job from the design perspective. So we work with a number of architects, but um, we we like to have a lot of involvement in what's going on with the drawings, the spatial relations, the architectural interiors, not necessarily the exterior built construction rather, but the all of the interior architectural elements. So that's right down to how one space relates to the other, how you know the overall volume of a space, the size of the fireplace, the kitchen cabinetry layout, the interior layout of bathrooms, and all of the fixtures and finishes, hard surfaces that go into those spaces. So we own all of that. I like to say to architects, I just want a sheetrock wall, and we'll go from there. So that's where we are. That we have 9 people here, 10 people here, uh, 3 different design teams essentially, and then a couple of people like me who work the other end of the business. Essentially, we collaborate quite a bit. It's really a design collaborative. That's what we like to uh, call ourselves, and that's what we're branding ourselves as. That's all been very recent in the past year or so. A
You mean collaborate?
rebranding effort that we've gone, a collaboration among us.
Yeah,
and
among you.
and a collaboration among other industry partners. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. You know, those are the
The
those are the best projects, right? The collaboration that starts with the
100%.
contractor, the architect, the interior designer, the landscape designer, right from the get-go. Everybody knows their role, boundaries are set, nobody's stepping on each other's toes, egos are checked at the door, and you go forward. You know, the ultimate goal is that, this environment that we're all contributing to creating, um, is is surpassing the expectations of the client, the homeowner.
Right. One thing that comes up a lot in conversations about interior designers and interior design in general, and I think we'll dig into this as we talk, obviously about the value of having someone like an interior designer on that team,
Yeah.
but also something that you just kind of touched on is that, every once in a while you'll hear like, oh yeah, the interior designer was so and so. They're not a real interior designer though. They're more of a decorator.
Decorator. Yes. There
And
is a
you just kind
distinction.
and you just hit, I think, the entire spread of what could be deemed an interior designer, from decoration, the pillows on the couch, to selecting materials, but all the way over to interior architecture.
Yeah.
And, you know, so kind of multi-part question here with your team. Are there individuals that kind of are bucketed into certain aspects of that? Like, hey, this team really focuses on, soft goods and furnishing and furniture, and over here they're going to be doing the drafting and the interior architecture.
No, we don't split it up. There is a project manager, a senior designer who's responsible for that project. They're assigned from the very beginning. In fact, these days, that person who is going to be taking on the project literally comes with me, um, on those first interviews with the client, because as much as they're interviewing us, we're interviewing them, right? Project needs to be a certain scale, needs to have certain challenges. It needs to be, um, interesting and challenging from a creative perspective for us. And also there's a minimum six-figure engagement, right? Um, so there are certain parameters. Some of these projects that we're doing are, luxury residences in these new high rises that have gone up in Boston and or New York. We've worked in Florida, we've worked in LA, um, and
That's a
we're
perfect drywall box,
right.
as you said.
It
You
is.
know,
It's a drywall box. So, there's a lot of interior architectural features that need to be added to those places, those spaces, to make them more unique. So you've got these people who are spending, a minimum $3 million to live in 1,200 square feet, and it's upwards from there. But their space looks exactly like the next guy who spent $3 million, right? There's no differentiation. So, oftentimes we are completely gutting bathrooms, and/or kitchens, or refacing cabinetry, and trying to differentiate these spaces from the next guy down the hall. Um, but when it comes to construction and, new construction, additions, renovations, we want to be involved from the very beginning. So yes, there is that architectural component, the construction and the built structure, right? And then from the studs and the sheetrock, um, begins the interior design and interior architectural component. And we really want to be involved in the meat of all of that. And then from there we go into the decoration component. So it's pretty all encompassing, really. We can fill a space with, beautiful furniture and expensive rugs and things like that. But if the architecture isn't right, if those other interior architectural design elements are not there, then if it can fall really flat. There's a lot more that goes into it than just, some pretty fabrics and some nice marble.
yeah. You know, as far as the architect's piece of it, or the architecture piece of it, is that something, like, you can't work with just any architect,
Mm,
because some of these architects have an interiors
they
program,
do.
or some of these architects will bring it pretty far to the interior.
Yep.
So, what is that, kind of speaking to that collaboration, you want to be involved, heavily involved with everyone. How are you coming to the table and really understanding whether or not your firm is a good fit? Because you and I have had conversations offline about, well, would it make sense to have another product where it's like we're not doing everything, but we're giving a smaller package or a more entry level package. But like you just kind of skipped over is like if you're doing a minimum six-figure engagement, that's going to rule out a lot of people, which is fine. Like you're going after a particular market,
Right.
and that six-figure is warranted with the amount of work that you're putting into it.
Right. Exactly. So, sometimes we're engaged by architects, sometimes we're engaged by general contractors who, meet a client and the client says this is the work scope, the job scope. And then, the contractor knows that there's a heck of a lot more involved than what the client thinks is involved, right? The homeowner. And there's suggestions from general contractors. I think you need to work with a designer as well. I think you need to work with an architect, speak to somebody about this. Maybe not an architect because there's no structural situations going on in this, in whatever the renovation work is. um, but when we're brought into a project by a contractor and or an architect, if the team has already been established, um, we're pretty humble. There are already parameters set around those folks. They were there first, right? So we take or we listen to the piece that's being offered to us, and if that's enough and it fits within our wheelhouse, then we go forward. If it's not, um, and we think that we should have a little bit more control over the project, then maybe we don't collaborate on that particular project. Sometimes to your point, there are a lot of high-end architectural firms that have an interior design division, right? So they are selecting those hard surface materials that are going into the construction project, and they are selecting the furnishings and the soft goods. So they don't need us, right? So they're not coming to us. They have their own built-in in-house team, and that's great. But the architects that we do work with, don't have that, right? So they're looking to add to their collaboration, right, in the group that they're trying to put together. And
Mhm.
and we just try to, as I said, we try to set the parameters right from the get-go. Who is responsible for what? And sometimes we've been in situations, literally been in situations where, an architect wants to be responsible for the kitchen, for instance, and we're going to take care of everything else. We're going to take care of the fireplaces, the surrounds, the built-in millwork that might be going into different spaces, and the tile and the faucets and plumbing fixtures and what have you in other parts of the house. Um, and we've been in situations where a client has taken that away from the architectural firm and thrown it at us because you've worked with us, and we get into a level of detail and a level of communication and a very very high end concierge type of service, for these homeowners, and they're hooked. They're hooked, literally. And it's pretty wonderful. Sometimes it can be difficult depending on the client personalities, right? um, but that is what we're looking for. We're looking to be their one stop.
Was that kind of your mindset or mindset going into this, that you wanted to be that one stop? Because I look at it where most, architects or interior designers and then decorators, they're all kind of separate entities. And a lot of times there isn't a one stop shop. And then you have all of these different people trying to stir one pot.
Yeah,
Was that like an issue that you kind of saw within the industry and were like, hey, this is what I want to do?
definitely. And obviously, architects and designers both play their roles, right? Very necessary roles. It's funny sometimes, you can be we'll be working with an architect who may not fully value what we bring to the table. um, and that's okay. And because what we're always thinking is, there's some great architecture going on and there's some great construction going on, but But if the client is left to their own devices in furnishing these spaces and selecting materials that 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 speak to one another from one space to the next within that environment, um, you're going to have a lot of a lot less cohesion in that space, right? And chances are that proportions and scale aren't going to be appropriate for the built environment, right? So you've got this beautiful space that was created by an architect and an incredible builder, and then it's been filled with mediocre stuff, right? And what does that say about the space? Okay, some people can see beyond all of that stuff, and they see the bones of the space, right? And they see the built environment of the space, and what they're left thinking is, oh, it could have been so much better if the sofa was 12 feet instead of 10 feet,
Yeah.
because the room is too big, or the furniture's too small, or you know um, the ceilings are too high and there's still too much of an echo in here, and they built this beautiful home, but now they can't afford to furnish it appropriately,
Right.
right?
See, that's an interesting point as well because I think what most people imagine, when somebody comes in and starts furnishing a home or decorating, so to speak, is that it's going to be specifically about the aesthetic of that stuff and not about the scale and proportions of it. Where it's
Right.
like, even if you hired somebody to come in and tell you what size the rug should be, what size your light fixture should be for the space, and they weren't specing what they should look like, it would still be better than you just like going out on a whim and saying, well, I like the style of this and I like the
Right.
style of that. Like, it's so important to get those proportions and scale right, equally as important as getting, that overall design aesthetic of what you want that space to look like.
I
Exactly.
want to I want to add something here. Michael came to our house that we recently sold, and it was at a time where I had told Michael, I was like, "Hey, I just finished this renovation, but I want to renovate it again." And he's like, "Let me come over. I'll figure out what's going on. We'll figure it." We end up just literally chatting, and I think maybe had a drink or something in the kitchen for 3 hours. But I'll never forget. It was simple. It was exactly what we're talking about here. Is like understanding the scale, and we went out and went to Restoration Hardware, and we walked around. We picked out a couch, and I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, I hate the living room. It feels super heavy, and I don't. And you said, Nick, you have a couch that's an inch off the ground. If you got a different couch that had like 6 inches of space under it, it would look lighter. And now every time I look at furniture, I'm like, now I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm not, that didn't solve all our problems, but and Meg talks about it all the time, where it's like she says it's the craziest thing. We hated the kitchen. We always thought it looked gross. And Michael came in. He shut all the lights off, and he turned on the under cabinet lighting and then the decorative lighting over the island, and was like, "What do you think now?" And Meg was like, "I love it." And it's just like having the understanding of like how but being thoughtful in it, where
Right.
it's like
Right.
lighting and the scale of furniture, and what type of furniture, and
Right.
what that room calls for, where it's like that was a small house and we had a 9 foot couch that sat on the floor that was super plush and leather.
Right.
It's like, of course it's going to look like a big brown brick.
Exactly. Exactly. And you touched on the lighting aspect in a project, and to me, it's literally the most important element that goes into a project.
And I
Lighting.
I argue that all the time, because when it's done.
Oh,
When it's not done
beautiful.
well,
Oh my
it's
God.
automatically bad.
Automatically
There's
bad.
no like, it's okay. It's either like, man, the lighting's really nice in here, or the lighting's really harsh.
Right. And it has to do with color temperature and lumens and all of that, let alone just the fixture and what the fixture looks like, right? And is it appropriate, and is it appropriately sized for the space, right? Visually. But once you turn it on, and then you turn on this other fixture, and you turn on that fixture, and then you turn on the table lamp, are they all reading in the same temperature, or are they various temperatures, and the lighting is completely screwy in this room,
Yeah.
right? And you feel it
What
immediately.
shadow it casts. There's a great meme I've seen on Instagram, and it's like these two hanging lights on this pitched ceiling, and when they turn on, it looks like a pair of boobs up on the ceiling with like giant nipples, and it's like who decided to put boob lights, on the ceiling? But like when you hang them and they're off, they look great.
They look
But when
great,
you turn them on, they shine. They cast this odd shadow,
right?
and it's like, but it's like it's crazy because like when you start talking about this stuff, and I think when even people that are in your like that want to be in interior design, like they start getting overwhelmed where it's like lumens, color of light, like how am I going to ever get ahead? I feel like this is how the
Yeah,
building industry and the design industry is there's an overwhelming amount of information that you quote unquote need to know, and you learn
you
it over
learn
time.
over
You're going to
time.
make a lot of mistakes,
Absolutely.
right? Like you put those lights up, they look like a pair of boobs in the ceiling. It's like, all right,
Right.
we got to
We gotta
replace
take those
those
down. Yeah.
and never use those lights
Nope.
again.
At least not on a ceiling like that, right?
Right.
You know?
Or
Maybe
space them
who
apart so
knows?
they're not
Yeah.
related.
Maybe a flat ceiling,
Yeah.
space them apart. Exactly. There are options. And you live and learn, right? We do all the time. Every project, right? You install a beautiful slate floor in a bathroom, and slate is this beautiful natural material that that we can thank Mother Nature for, right? Um, but you get it, and you're installing it, and then it gets covered, right? And instead of making sure that we pull the cover off and just see a tile layout before anything is grouted, etc., fell off the radar. Everything gets set, grouted, etc. There's heated floor underneath that master bathroom tile, and there's like three tiles that just don't look great, you know? And gee, we always have extra. Maybe we could have, had we seen it, maybe we could have swapped out those three tiles that are randomly placed, and but every time I go in that master bathroom, that's all I'm going to see are those three tiles, and it's like, oh my god, how many hundreds of bathrooms have we done, right? But we didn't pull back the paper. We didn't see it the day that it was being installed, or those 2 days it was being installed, on top of heated floors, and of course, so there's no recourse, right? Once it's installed, it's installed. um,
Uh, if the builder or whatever, I know you're talking about a specific project, and if the builder's listening, I'm sorry that I'm telling Michael this, but I found out that you can remove tile on a heated floor because you can actually repair that heated
that
cable
section,
if it breaks.
really?
Schluter has a repair kit. So I always thought the same thing. I was like, you can't take these tile up. Or if the heated cable breaks, oh well, like you got to wait till you retile the whole room.
Right.
But they actually can repair the cable in the field,
Wow.
and they can. And if it breaks while when the floor is not, um, like if the tile's not up and the floor is not working,
Yeah.
they can actually trace where that break
Damage.
Where the
is. So
break is.
yeah, very interesting.
That's
I had talked to Andy over at Schluter at the Builder Show, and he had mentioned that, and I'm like, hold on, you skipped over that so quick. Like I feel like
is
90% of
this
people
real?
do not know that
Yeah.
that you can repair this stuff.
Oh my god, that's exciting. That's great.
So whoever's gonna whoever Michael's about to call and ask to rip out some tile, I do apologize. This is directed at everyone else except for you.
It's only a
But it is.
few.
It's like it's all the lessons learned,
It really is.
and it's and how you obviously react to that. But guys, before we get into our sponsors this week, I want to announce a giveaway that Westlake Royal Pros is doing. They're sponsoring a giveaway for $500 towards a tool shopping spree on the at Tool by Design Amazon store. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the at Tool by Design bio. To enter, you need to follow them. You need to comment below with a pro who could use some new tools. And you get a bonus entry for anyone who shares the stories with at Westlake Royal Pros tag. Winner will be randomly selected and announced on March 24th. And as always, guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. Do you see what they came up with, Tyler?
I feel like I always see what they come up with, but maybe I
They
don't know exactly what
The
you're saying.
starter strip,
Oh,
which I
yeah,
don't know why it took so long for. I mean, for any product, like all you're constantly ripping an entire piece of clapboard and
always.
trying. and not only that, but like it's not only one piece that you need because this stuff stacks up over time. But they came out with a 1/4 inch at the butt end by a 3 inch overall, and it works on both the 7/16 and the 5/8 material. And they sell it in a bundle, which includes 12 8-foot pieces, which that's almost 100 linear feet, which saves the client's time and money to help with that installation for their clapboard.
Maybe a lot of people just don't use it, like
Oh,
starter
I never
strip.
even thought of that.
Yeah, I feel like a bunch of people just probably don't, and they're like,
Oh
"Oh,
gosh, that
first
must look
course
so
just isn't
terrible.
gonna kick out." Um,
Oh my gosh.
you know? But basically,
Well,
essentially, if you're putting that under your first course, it makes it look identical to every other course that has a piece of the siding going up underneath of it and kind of lapping on top of it, which is
yeah.
what you
If you,
should be doing.
yes, if you're not doing it, change your ways,
Yeah, so
because
now they're making it a lot easier for you. There's a specific product for this.
if you guys want to learn more about that, durationmillwork.com. But also, if you guys are going to be attending JLC live, which is next week, or actually, I'm sorry,
This week,
it's this week.
yeah.
Make sure you go over to the JLC website. Duration's actually posted a lot up there about the show and what they're going to be promoting. So hopefully, we see you at JLC Live New England, March 25th and 26th this week. This podcast is also brought to you by Reno Run. Reno Run continues to grow. I swear, I see their vans. I know you don't see them, Tyler, yet.
No, I
You're
don't.
going to, but I see their vans constantly,
Really?
everywhere, everywhere, and it's just it's a source and deliver building materials, and they started this kind of like last minute delivery, as you guys might already know, but if you need something last minute, rather than leaving the job site and going to get it, you can get on their app, or get in touch with your sales rep, get that order placed, and they're going to have that same day, not another day or weeks later. And now, as they're continuing to grow, they're doing bigger and bigger orders. And I'm pretty sure I saw a Reno Run Moffat truck and a boom truck, so they're
They're
getting pretty legit.
yeah, that's absolutely incredible, and I feel like the opportunities that they're opening for themselves, it's gonna I don't feel like they're gonna stop anytime soon, but definitely give them a try, um and see if you like it. Let us know if you like it. It kind of helps us out. You guys supporting our sponsors is helping us out. So, if it's Duration, Reno Run, we have Dylan on here from Upstate now, Rock Wool, all of these people. And if you have questions about this, touch base with us and we can kind of point you in the direction that you need to be to get set up with any of these companies as well.
Yeah, and if you guys don't already know about Run a Run, runaRun.com. And if it is in your area and you guys want free delivery, it's on us, podcast.runaRun.com/Modern Craftsman. And as this podcast is also brought to you by Rockwool, high performance, fire resistant, soundproofing stone wool insulation for your interior and exterior walls, not only helping you to overachieve local codes and building standards, but getting ahead of future codes. Um, you know, if you guys are following the NS Builders page, you're seeing our Rhode Island project, which is using all Rockwool, the comfort board, and bat materials. But we just started a new build, and we actually reached out to Rockwool, and their techs are taking our drawings and going through it and basically helping us put together a complete installation package for that project, rather than using, say, a foam based product.
Do you know what's also really nice about their stuff? It doesn't itch. I
Mm.
hate fiberglass insulation. It's
I don't
so
even
itchy.
I don't even know about fiberglass installation anymore.
Oh,
I haven't seen
you're
it.
you're lucky.
Do you use it
Uh,
a lot?
yeah, I mean it's pretty typical with like the smaller jobs that we
Mm.
do. It doesn't make sense. A lot of that's what's in the house already. Um, a lot of times we end up switching over to a product like Rockwool, but like if I have the opportunity between the two, it's a no-brainer. But, working with that is so much nicer than sweating and having insulation
Oh yeah.
stick to your arms and itchy.
I mean, there's so many
One
benefits
of the
to it.
many benefits, of using that. But I was just sitting here thinking how bad it is to insulate, and then I was like, yeah, it's so nice. It's nice to work
Dude, I
with.
feel
You
like
cut it,
I
you can
feel
cut it easily
I'm just gonna assume there's a guy right now that's cutting fiberglass insulation,
and
listening to this
tearing
podcast,
the paper and like trying to
listen to
push
this
it down.
podcast, and he's like, "You guys, I can't get Rockwell.
Yeah,
Check out their website. I bet you
you
can.
can. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, Rockwell.com." This podcast is also brought to you by a long-time partner of ours, Upstate Merch. They have done merch for the Modern Craftsman. They've done merch for us as contractors. They have just been, our go-to screen printing, embroidery, and graphic design shop. Located in Whitney Point, New York. Over 12 years, Upstate Merch prides themselves on using only the best materials and American-made tools to get the job done. With their highly trained staff and graphic design team, they will walk you through the process and find the right garment and printing style for your needs. And whether you're looking for a giveaway shirt, embroidery hats, safety wear, polos, hoodies, or you're looking for top quality garments to outfit your entire team, Upstate Merch has it covered. Some of their favorite brands to print on are Bella Canvas, Next Level, Carhartt, Richardson, Bayside, and many more. Check them out at upstatemerch.com or email them at print@upstatemerch.com. And if you mention the Modern Craftsman podcast, you're going to receive 10% off your first order.
I'll be honest, I used a lot of different companies for merch over the years. Work shirts, shirts for my kids, and I never loved the experience. Dylan's a great guy. It's so easy because you can send him, your ideas. They have graphic designers on hand that they can kind of help you sort out your ideas, and then they ship them right to your door,
Hmm.
which is pretty nice. So don't think, hey, they're in New York. We need, a lot of people. Same thing with me. I was looking for people locally, but I think a lot of their customers actually are not local, so they're mailing stuff out on a daily basis. So definitely check them out. I know for a long time they were running contractor specials where if you need T-shirts for your business, they can hook you up with
Dude,
a pretty
yeah,
good,
they were
pretty
like,
good.
yeah, they were like 100 or something. You can get 100
Yeah.
for
I mean,
super
I
inexpensive.
don't know what the deal is with everything that's going on. I know that they had like even me just getting shirts, there's limited availability with colors and stuff like that, but definitely reach out to them if you need business shirts and they'll sort something out for you where you can get a ton of business shirts at a good price and get them quickly.
Going back and kind of what Tyler had asked, like, you go into this with this mindset of wanting to be all inclusive. You want to do the interior design, but you want to bring it all the way to furniture because that's it. Because ultimately, like, furniture can really ruin or make a project. But
Certainly.
what about 15 years ago when you started this
Oh my God.
in your, like, let's talk about 15 years ago,
Yeah.
because this is what I love about this podcast is that there's people listening to this that either want to get into interior design, they want to expand their business into interior design, there's maybe a husband that his wife wants to get into it.
Yep.
Like, those early years of understanding, you know the mistakes that you made and like how that shaped what you know ultimately turned into this 9-person team at 11 Interiors.
God. So back then, you guys know what it's like when you're starting your business. You'll take anything, right? A $10,000 job is better than no job.
Right.
So you're taking that $10,000 job that's just, for us as an interior designer, decorator, um, that a lot of people at that level will think of you as instead of an interior designer. Um, you would be thought of as a decorator, right? Because you're doing $10,000 in a small custom built in, right? And you're
Hmm.
working with a mill worker to get it done and get it installed. Okay. You're designing something and drawing it up. That's great. But you're also doing maybe you get lucky and you've got that $250,000 project or, a $500,000 project. And slowly but surely things start to grow, right? But I was literally working out of my apartment. I was alone doing it all, drawings, specifying product,
Hmm.
presenting it to clients, ordering it, tracking it, you know, um, designating all the details, right, of a sofa and the fabric and the welt and the foot and the height of the back and how many buttons are on the back of the sofa, whatever it was, whatever the details were. And I was grateful, because everything was positive. It was all a
Mm.
plus. Um,
How long
the
did you work for that other firm?
for about 2.5 years.
So beyond like the money side of it, of like, oh, this guy's making a bunch of money, I want to make money.
Yeah.
What ultimately pushed you to go off on your own?
I
Did you feel as though you learned a lot from there, or saw mistakes that you could counteract?
Both. Yeah, for sure. And years ago, when I was graduating high school, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to go to school for architecture. My father was like, absolutely not. You're going to go to business school and you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to have a great life. Trust me, just trust me on this. But I always wanted to be an architect. So, I followed that path that he suggested. And thankful and grateful because it taught me so much about business. I ended up in the corporate world and in corporate finance and what have you, and all of that came to fruition. But then for a while, I lived in France, and all the everything about France and Europe in general is about design and architecture, and whether it's furniture, lighting, buildings, whatever it is, and you were surrounded by something. I was anyway that I had never seen before, and I thought, this is amazing, right? This is amazing. I missed my calling years ago, 15 years ago. So when I came back to the States, I was working for this firm. I left all of that behind. I was working for this firm, made complete life changes, and went back to school. By that time, I was too old to transfer credits, but I wanted to have the academic credentials. I didn't just want to be like this person who was a, you know, quote unquote designer, interior designer, decorator, whatever. So I wanted to have those credentials, and I had to go back to school and get another undergraduate degree at that stage. And while I was doing that, I was working for this design firm, learning the ropes essentially.
Do you
Um,
do you think that the credentials nowadays are important? Like, do you
yeah,
think schooling in interior
I
design
I
now
do
nowadays is important?
at least a certificate program.
Why is that?
Because you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you just you don't. There's so much that you can learn and so much exposure, and the more you learn, if you're really passionate about it, the more you'll want to learn and the more you'll want to perfect what it is that you can do, right?
Mm.
All of your skills, whether it be from, selecting, one tactile material to another tactile material, or being able to, do drawings in various programs, right? CAD, Revit, SketchUp, whatever it might be. Um, you want to perfect all of those skills. And it's funny because after all this time, and first I'm doing my own thing, I'm all alone, and then I realize I need an assistant because a year or so into it, it's you're working a 12 or 14-hour day, and you're thinking, okay, if I get this other job that I'm trying to get, these people that I'm networking with, et cetera, if I get this other job that I'm trying to get, I'm never going to be able to do that job, plus everything else I've got going on. It is time to hire somebody, right?
And it's not like you're 20 at this point where you're just like ready to take on the world with all the
No,
energy in the world. It's like,
exactly.
this is my second time around now. I
Exactly.
want somebody to do this shit for me.
Right on. I was in my early 40s and I was thinking, oh my God, 12, 15-hour days are really, they're strenuous, right? But it goes on and you continue to grow. You add one person, you add a second person. These people that I was hiring at the time, they were either interns who were just graduating, or they were recent graduates who had gone to work in the commercial sector and then realized, I don't want to do this. I don't want to just be sitting at a desk responsible for, like, you know um, bathrooms in this multi-unit project that's going on, and that's all I'm doing is drawing bathrooms and designating where the outlets are and where the switches are, etc. There's nothing creative about this, right? So those people are jumping ship, and they're available. um, and then I was older at the time. I was in my early 40s and I'm doing this, and these young people who are coming to work with me, um, And I never called them employees. I always called them my colleagues. I always felt like, um, I, they were looking to become something, right? And they were hungry, and they were willing to work hard, um, and I loved mentoring them. And I felt like they were, my nieces or nephews and stuff. And I thought, there's a karma thing going on here too, right? I want to be good to these people, and I want to teach them as much as I can. And I even used to say to them, in 5 years, you should be able to go out. You're going to be so exposed to so many things on so many different varied projects, right? Different scale of projects and stuff. And you're going to be so exposed that you should be able to go out in 5 years and start your own thing. That was my encouraging speech that I would give them essentially, right? And I fully expected that. But people didn't leave. It was great. I had my first employee was with me for 11 years before she started her own firm in Florida.
How
Um,
coincidental.
right. My second one was here for 7 years before she started her own firm in New England, in New Hampshire. And um and and over the years, people have stuck around. It's been really great. I feel very, very fortunate. But getting back to like these young people who are so interested in learning and um motivated and loyal, dedicated. They'd work long hours and stuff, and we'd be like sending off a lunch, sending off a dinner, whatever it was. I'd be sending them on a weekend away with a husband or a boyfriend or whatever, because I knew how hard they were, how much effort they were putting in, how hard they were working.
You
But
say that
these
like
people,
you were doing that, but you are doing that.
yeah, you're right.
Like
I
at
am.
least, like
It's true. It still continues in a different,
yeah, like we
different
worked
people in a different
together
way,
probably 2 years ago, but it's like even then it was like I'm getting 9 o'clock emails, and it's like,
right?
all right,
It's
they're
still
in the
it's
office, they're
still there.
hustling through
They're
this
doing their
my
thing.
questions, they're
And
doing yeah.
they always felt like it felt like they were part of my family, really. And I thought this karma thing about my own nieces and nephews who are in their 20s and 30s, who are out there trying to make a living at whatever they're doing. And I hope that there's somebody out there treating them right, and giving them what they need, the tools they need, whatever it might be, knowledge or advice or whatever, to succeed in whatever it is that they're trying to do. I mean, that is the nature of humanity, right? We should all be, uh, you know, helping one another to one degree or another, right? As much as you can.
That's what I was just
Um,
gonna ask you, and I actually just noted, starting the business, kind of coming from a career in another profession, and having that schooling, and then going back and starting kind of all over again. Um,
yeah,
that obviously gave you insight to kind of how to run a business, and just emotional maturity, how to treat people, what's the right thing
absolutely,
to do,
Tyler.
not to just, you're not just in it to make money. And I think of a lot of the guys and girls we talk to on the podcast who started their business young, 20 something years old, and you're trying to figure out how to make this business work, and it's so dependent on the business and the numbers and running it. And I think that a lot of times we're not mature enough to understand that, like, it's the people that make up the business.
100%.
Um,
100%. Those people are going out and they're representing you every
yeah,
day. Every little correspondence, every text to a client, to a collaborator, every email, it's representing your firm, right? You want it to be done a certain way. You want to encourage them, you want to teach them and guide them, and they will be so much better for it. But you can't do it in a condescending way. People are you got to be you've got to be understanding, and you've got to have some empathy, and you can't have all this crazy ego. There's a lot of ego in this industry, and you're only as good as your last job, right? You're only as good
Very
as
true.
you're only as good as the people that you're surrounding yourself with, who are helping you to complete these projects, right?
Can I add something? Sorry to interrupt. What you just said about you're only as good as your last job. I was thinking about this actually today, and I also think it's interesting that we have the ability to reshape who we are entirely because of the ability to be as good as our last job.
Yes.
So when you do, like, I think about when people struggle where they have a bad job and it's like, this is going to ruin my reputation. And it's like, it could.
It could.
momentarily.
Yes.
And it's up to you
Right on.
to take that and then apply something better to the next opportunity, because and I think about like myself specifically, it's like we've changed so much over the course of the last 9 years, and I think about
You guys
like
have changed so much in the course of the last 3 years, let alone
yeah,
9. My
I would
god.
100% agree
My
with that.
god.
But
Yeah.
like, but every time I go back and look at those moments, it's like, man, like we really sucked at that point, but then we changed.
Right.
And then we really sucked then, and it's like then we changed.
Yep.
And it's that I think it's just worth like kind of saying that out loud, because I think that so many people oftentimes get wrapped up in the sense that like I'm spiraling out of control, or these projects aren't going well. Like I gotta shut it down. It's like that's not necessarily the case. Like
Right.
you do have the opportunity to change.
You do. And I fully believe that. I think that I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to grow the business and taking their eye off the ball, right? So, we've had opportunity to take on some really nice projects the past couple of years. As you guys know, it's been crazy busy in this industry, right? And and we've had to reflect on, hey, we don't have the manpower to handle this. And having my team working, 12 hours a day plus, and a few hours maybe on the weekends to try to catch up, that's enough. How much more am I supposed to expect from them? Yeah, sure, I want to do that $1 million project, or that $500,000 project, or that $350,000 decoration for a 1+ bedroom in the Seaport in Boston, right? Sure, I want to do it, but I can't do it right now. And the client doesn't want to wait 4 or 6 months until we're ready to do it, right? And you got to pass. And that is a bitter pill to swallow. But
How do you decide whether to pass or grow in that moment?
well, the market these days has made it pretty easy for us because
Well,
it's
yeah, it's
so
hard to
busy,
find people.
right? And it's just hard to find people. So,
Mhm.
hey, you can't do it. I can't expect people to be working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day.
Sure.
And you know what? At my age, I don't want to do it either.
Right.
To Tyler's point earlier, this whole thing about, the money, the money, the money. Um, if that's your focus, then you will eventually fail, I think, because um, it only gets you so far. It's the people, it's your connections, it's your way of approaching business, it's your way of doing things, it's your communication, it's your integrity, it's all of those things that will continue to
Mm.
sustain you, and work will continue to come back to you, right? It just is, and the jobs will continue to come.
I think
um,
that, to elaborate on that, the money being, I think more specifically, like what you end up putting in your personal pocket.
yeah.
Like that is like the driver to failure. Where it's
Yeah.
like the other side of this is money is a big part of what we do.
Sure.
And it can't be looked at as evil, right? Where it's
Nope.
like, well, if Michael has a six-figure minimum, like that's big money
Yep.
for a lot most of the population.
Right.
So it's like we can't ignore money when we're making $100,000. Well, we're not making $100,000, but it's like it's a very substantial investment. Where it's like, yeah, someone that wants to spend $350,000 on a furniture package for a one bedroom in the Seaport, it's like, yeah, I want that. Not because I'm going to make more money on it, but the money has given me the opportunity to dabble into spaces that I haven't been able to, or
Right.
be more creative with
Absolutely.
materials. And I
100%.
and that's where it's like the money isn't always the evil. The evil comes when it's directly related to your personal, like
Your
only
personal gain.
focusing, yeah, your personal gain
Yes.
with no regard to how it impacts your colleagues and the end user.
Well,
Exactly.
even as far as the $100,000 six-figure minimum, a lot of people probably hear that and think, that that's basically putting you in a category that you can only pick certain furnishings and you can only design to a certain
No,
level,
not
but
at all.
it's more so that it just affords you more time. Like
Yes.
the amount of time and effort that you're going to put into these jobs, like that budget, and it's the same thing with building. That budget isn't necessarily allowing you to just build with all of these like frivolously. It just affords you time to work through design and design something and build something that's right.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of thought. You've got to work through so many problems. I mean, we tell clients all the time that this process is has been refined over the years, right? We're always refining the process. And 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 it's front loaded. We could be working 3 months, we could be working a year and a half just on drawings and layouts and materials and fixtures and finishes and what have you before anybody starts swinging a hammer. And they're paying for all of that, right? And the bills rack up, and then we go into construction, or they start getting their custom furniture or this or that. But it's not. It's the money thing. The money thing is certainly a creative. It provides you a certain level of creativity for sure. Um, but to your point, Nick, earlier, what you said, it can't just be about the money and about the growth on that kind of a level. It needs to be that have to be other factors that are considered, or you will have problems. I mean, can you imagine in this market, right? We all know what's going on. So, you've got this market, and let's say, start taking on all of these jobs. No, we have to do this. We have to do this. I can't pass up this job, and etc. And these people are working. My team is working way overtime, and it's consistent, continuous. They can leave, and then what am I going to do? What am I going to do with those projects that I'm in the middle of? Right. And now there are fewer people to do them. Before it was very stressful. Now there are fewer people to do them. And in this market, it's very difficult to find people. So there is a level of vulnerability, and then there's just balance everywhere. Right. The old saying, everything in moderation, holds true in so many ways in this industry as well.
I mean, you could also you can demand more of yourself, you can demand more of your employees, but that it can't be all the time. It's like,
Right
hey,
on.
we need to push right now. But if you're demanding that much of everybody all the time, at some point it's your product or your experience is going to suffer
Something
because people
suffers.
are just going to get burnt out. So it's like you're taking on more work and putting more responsibility in other people. And at the end of the day, you're really diluting your product. So it's like these
100%.
people hired you in the first place for one thing, and now you're throwing other people at different jobs and moving people around so you can go get this new job. And it's like, well, they hired, all these people hired you for one thing, and now you're giving them something completely different. If
Completely
you
different.
don't have the time to kind of bring somebody on, train somebody, understand how your systems work, and then deliver your product, now you're delivering a different product.
Exactly. A different level of service. And what are they paying for? They were paying for something else, right?
Yeah.
Now they're not getting it. And hey, wait a minute, how much are you charging me? And this is the kind of communication I'm receiving. This is the kind of service I'm receiving. These are the efforts that are being made, and they're falling short, right? And
Right.
and it's hard to argue with a client when they get to that point. No, not argue, but try to defend yourself, right?
Right.
Because deep down that that is what's happening.
I think that's also like related to money here too, is that there's the hourly rate in which people pay for a service, but there's
Yes.
also a fee or our intended profit,
Yeah.
whether it's the gross profit or the net profit. But the my point is that a lot of what we do is build in a time manner where it's like you're paying for the time that's invested, but above and beyond that, and I think that it's completely deserving of builders, contractors, designers, architects. Like you also need to be paying for the value in which I've invested the last 20 years of my life learning, where
100%.
it's like, listen, you're going to pay me $200 an hour for this, but on top of that, like we're going to make a profit or a fee, like a cost plus or however
Yeah.
it might be structured, because that, like what you just said, like you're going to receive a level of service with that. You're getting our 10 out of 10 communication. You're
Right.
getting the 20 years and the 100 years collectively
Combined.
amongst you guys of collaboration behind the scenes.
Right.
And it's like that, to make it about money, because we are in these businesses to be profitable, to
Yep.
be, like, listen, I want to
Nick's just
be,
justifying his drive for money right now.
I just want a
It's
yacht.
fine, I just
I
wanna make
just want a
money.
yacht.
I mean,
No,
we
but
all
like,
we all have to make a living, right?
we do.
We
And
all have
and
families to provide for and what have you, of course.
and listen, like, I'm not shy about it. Like, I want to be wealthy. I want to, and I don't think that,
Nothing
and I've
wrong
said
with
it
that.
before. Like, I don't think that building homes is going to be my single path to that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm committed to delivering a service above and beyond what is the norm. Where it's like, I will reinvest in constantly invest in myself and in my business. You know, every dollar I have from
Right,
profit, in
right,
order to bring it to a level that I can have minimums. I can have that six-figure minimum design interior design budget. I can have a $350,000 furniture budget,
right.
and it's not because ultimately I'm going to make more money on that client. It's that's where my mind, like that.
That's
Those are
where
the things I value,
that's the level you wanna be at. Exactly.
right?
Yes, I
And it's
agree.
and
I
they're
mean,
not like, yes, I want to be paid well for my time, as you do, as Tyler does, as everyone does, and as do our colleagues, like,
yeah,
or our teammates, or our employees, whatever. It's,
of
you
course.
know we want to be like, especially in today's market. I had a
Yeah.
conversation, a couple weeks ago, with a builder that lost one of his best guys because he was offered an exorbitant raise, to the tune that he couldn't even afford to counteract it.
Yeah,
And I'm
yes,
hearing this over and
over
over
and
and
over.
over, and it's like, all right, well, like, yeah, money is a driving factor, when, like, in some sense, no matter what, whoever you are,
Of course.
money is definitely related to the decisions that you make in an everyday life. And
Right.
it doesn't mean that you're making it based on how much money I can make for doing the least amount of work, but money is a factor.
Right, and it doesn't mean that money is the only factor, but it
Right.
is one of the factors. Some people have it as a more important factor than other factors, right? And they're willing to sacrifice those others for the paycheck. And that's totally fine. It's not that it's wrong. What I'm saying is um, that kind of thing, you know, didn't work for me. And I think maybe because of my age and getting into this whole new career and a whole new industry in my mid to late 30s, and having had, you know, 13, 14 years in a whole other industry and seeing what that was like and how cutthroat that was, and promotions and raises and bonuses and et cetera, and what it did to people. And I thought, wow, this is not something that I need to continue to participate in moving forward. It doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me feel good. I got to sleep at night, right? So it just wasn't that important to me anymore. But yes, of course, we make decisions based on money. I mean, if somebody came to me right now with a $50,000 project or a $75,000 project, chances are very, very low that I would take on that project.
What
You
if they
know,
were a repeat client?
I would.
You take it.
Different story. Yeah. If it's a
But at
new
the
client,
core, like,
it's hard
but
to
at the core,
Yep,
but why?
because that repeat client has probably already spent who knows how much money with my firm, right? We already have a relationship. We've built a level of trust and confidence between us. I know how they work, they know how we work,
Mm.
right? How do we operate together? It's almost a no-brainer. It's very, very easy to walk into that project. You're already you're
So I think
already
there's a
You don't
caveat
have
here
to
that,
date, you know?
yeah.
we don't have to date.
You're already
Yeah,
past
Tyler.
that whole
Right on.
thing, and
Right.
it's so much easier. You don't have to do the
Right.
whole song and dance.
Right. And the over the years, my firm has changed. We used to be more amenable to um, how do I say this thing, like shopping retail, essentially, right? Going to the restoration hardwares of the world, or the Crate and Barrels, or whatever it is. And we don't particularly do that anymore, right? To do we're looking to place furnishings and tile and fixtures and lighting that are um, more unusual, right? Allowing us more creativity, and oftentimes that can mean a larger budget to be able to provide for these things. So we are looking at, that other echelon of project. Like Nick said, there are projects that I we probably wouldn't consider right now, because it's not just the project and the budget, it's also the people that you're going to be working with, right? What are the three considerations that we go through? It's the people we're going to be working with. That goes for the not only the client, but the whole collaboration, internally, externally, etc. There's the financial component of the project, right? Is there a profit to be made? I'm in business to make money, obviously, right? I'm not running at a deficit and pulling money out of my savings account to pay my colleagues, my employees, right? We need to make money. And the other thing is, for us, another consideration is this a portfolio piece? Is this something we can be proud of? Is it something we can photograph? Maybe not publish, but is it something unusual enough, or beautiful enough, or interesting enough that it'll work for our social media, it'll work for our website, it'll work if we wanted to advertise it, it'll work if we wanted to submit it to the kitchen and bath issue of that, the annual issue of kitchens and baths, and in a regional or a national magazine. There are those considerations. So it's more than just money on any
Yeah,
on
of
any level,
course.
right?
I think that the portfolio side of it is that's the way we look at projects now. And
Yeah,
it's hard to check every single box.
it is.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they
Yeah,
totally do.
two out of
But
three works.
oftentimes, yeah, oftentimes they don't. And there's, a component where it's like, all right, like this is a portfolio piece. This will, the entire team, great team, budget's tight.
Yeah.
And for me, like
How do we creatively make it work, though, right?
right,
That
and
can
that's the
become.
most that like that's where I'm down. Where if it's a bad team, but the budget's great,
Yeah,
and the and it's a portfolio piece, I'm probably walking away.
right, right.
Where it's like if it's not a portfolio piece, but it's a good team and a good budget, okay, maybe I'll stick around, and try to like put a couple Easter eggs in that project so I can photograph and make it cool,
Yeah,
and get a few pieces of content out of it. But it's like you really have to run through all those things and really consider when something doesn't check one of those boxes, what could that project look like,
right,
you know
right,
and not necessarily looking at it as worst case scenario, but understanding like, when there is a red flag, what does that mean for the project? Is my team going to have a hard time being on this job every day because the builder's a nightmare,
right. Yeah,
or am I going to have a hard time, funding this job because the client is constantly late on their invoicing and they're running out 30 days, and then I got another $300,000 in material ordered, like that could screw me up.
brutal. Yeah, the cash flow issue is big for you guys, for sure,
Huge.
for sure. You're doing a lot of work before you're getting paid for it, and
Right.
even though there are some deposits, you're oftentimes ahead of that payment structure,
Yeah,
right?
and that's something that we're constantly looking at and constantly revising and communicating to our clients is like, listen, you know, I I worked for a commercial developer before starting NS, and I remember every month the concrete guy, his rec was like $1 million every month, and he'd call like 10 days after he submitted. He goes, I'm not the fucking bank.
Yeah,
Pay me.
yeah,
I'm not financing this job. And and it was like humorous at the time. I'm like, dude, like you're getting paid. Like I've done all my work. Like I don't have $1 million that I can hand you, nor like this is a multi-billion-dollar company. But it's always stuck with me. And it's like, why would I like here I am, we're building a $2 million house. Like, why would I be out $250,000,
of course not.
and then hope to get that back?
No, no, no,
Where it's
no.
like this has
Wow,
to be mutually trusting,
absolutely.
right?
Yes,
And frankly, the client has set that money aside, where it's like that money should be pre-funded prior to us, paying our trades, but also
absolutely,
done in a way where our trades aren't waiting. And that's the
absolutely.
hardest part, because some of these guys, one man shop, it's like, hey, can I grab a check Friday when I wrap up?
Oh yeah.
It's like they're living check to check. And
Yeah.
like I have conversations all the time. I'm like, I don't want you to price the job like that. I want you to be profitable.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be scraping by and doing this check to check thing. I want you to feel as though you're being paid for the value that you're bringing, not just the time that you're putting in on the job.
Of course. Of course, it's a tough thing sometimes. I know that you guys run into this a lot in the trades, and we work less directly with the trades these days because the projects are bigger and there's a general contractor involved, right? So you guys are managing the trades. When we're doing a smaller gig, of course, um, and a general contractor isn't necessary. You're working in these buildings downtown, for instance, and maybe you're ripping out a bathroom, or refacing another bathroom. Just changing the tile in the tub shower kind of thing. We're not bringing a general contractor in for that. So we do see it sometimes, but not as much as we used to see it. And I feel for these guys. I feel for these people that go through that experience. Um, but we don't see that a lot. But I know that it does really exist. And on our end, very very clearly spelled out that the deposits required for us to purchase, on behalf of a client, for us to purchase materials, furniture, fixtures. Minimum is 65%. So we are almost covering the cost of that product with the first deposit,
Hmm.
right? And there's a balance due when the product is ready to ship, and it
Right.
doesn't ship until it's due, until it's paid.
Right.
And I learned in the first 5 or 6 years that floating money like that for people who have taken on, a responsibility on their end, right? To, as you said, the money should be set aside already. Hey, when 3 years into my career in interior design, it was like, I started thinking to myself, um, we had a budget, we have a budget, and every time the client selects something, whether it's tile or faucets or furniture or fabric to reupholster a chair that they had from their grandmother or something, a rug, whatever it was. Every time something was selected on that line item budget, the budget was updated, the proposal was sent. This is where you are. Your $50,000 is now $52,000, or whatever the situation was. So there were never any surprises, right? Coming from my background in corporate finance, I never wanted any financial surprises on a job. And I drill that into, um, collaborators, and contractors and or just subs that we're working with directly on a smaller project. I don't want any financial surprises. Make sure you account for everything. I understand that sometimes things are missed, and then it's got to be explained, and it's got to be explained quickly, and the communication needs to be very, purposeful and detailed, right? But anyway, I learned very early on that not collecting that deposit, or a client not sending the money and then calling me 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, saying, when is that going to be coming in? Well, it's got a 6 week lead time. Back in the day, it's got a 6 week lead time. Once I place the order, I haven't placed the order yet because I haven't received the deposit, right? So I'm holding up my end of the bargain. You've got to
Right.
hold up your end of the bargain. And it can be really tough when you're starting out to be firm like that, you know?
Mm.
But same thing as this concrete guy. It's like, I'm not your bank.
Right.
I provide you with a service. And in order to get that service, you need to pay me for it.
Right.
Right. And I'm worth it. And I'm going to make this a good experience for you. And you're going to like what I deliver. I have every confidence. A big part of the job is confidence, not ego and pomposity or arrogance, but confidence.
How do you think that what did you necessarily attribute your success to, being that, you went to school and you said that you worked for somebody for 2.5 years before you started your own firm?
Yeah.
Did you just hit the ground running blindly and say, I'm going to make this happen? Or did you feel you just had natural talent, ability to kind of make this, kind of get to where you are today? Because at the end of the day, you said 15 years you're in business. It's not that long of a time, you know?
No. Yeah,
especially
it's
coming
not.
from a separate career and starting later on. So, what did you really, I mean, what was the kind of keys to your success being that you had such little experience before starting your own firm?
Um, it's a really good question. I think that way back, Tyler, when I was a kid, um, my father was super strict. We had a big family, big Italian family, right? And there was a lot to do, lots of chores, lots of stuff going on, and we worked hard. There were no excuses, and there was no drama, and there wasn't any ego. There wasn't any time for it. My brothers would have beat it out of me. My and we all would have done it to each other, right? Um, so there was no special attention or coddling or special focus, and you learned that you got out what you put in. And my father always used to say, "It's amazing that the harder you work, Michael, the luckier you seem to get." It's
It's
like,
true.
yeah, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? It's not all luck, it's hard work, right? Being consistent, showing up, doing your thing, figuring out what you need to do to get to that next level. I know that I'm talking in some generalities here, but it really is hard work, determination, um, making a promise to yourself that this is what you're going to do and you're going to complete it 110%. Right? And there are no excuses. The buck stops here. I am responsible. It doesn't matter if one of my colleagues, installs a certain material and the material is, you know, difficult to clean or whatever it is, and the client moves into the house and they're angry about it, right? Well, what are we going to do? We're going to go back and we're going to remove the material and we're going to fix it because that's what you should do. You have to own it. It's not my colleague's fault that I approved a material, I edited all the selections, I did this. You've got to be accountable, right? And it goes a long, long way.
It seems as I always have the mentality that people who are successful in life, it doesn't necessarily matter what career path they take. They have the personality type and the drive to be successful. And it's almost, like you had a successful career before this, and
Yeah,
then it's like now you're gonna try something else and you're gonna be successful at. And if 5 years
right
from
on.
now you decide you want to do something else, and, like, I say the same thing about Nick. It's like Nick can do one thing, and then, 2 days later, he wants to be doing something else, and he's gonna be successful at it because he's gonna put the effort into it and
Exactly.
kinda figure out how to make it work. And I think with a lot of people, in any industry, it's so true. It's how much you put into it that you're gonna get out of it. Most of the very successful people, there's a handful that probably just were born into it or are very lucky, but for the most part the people who are highly successful athletes, everything like that, it's the people who work the hardest.
That's right. You just got to put in the time, and you'll get lucky, right?
I mean, people always want
It's
a
not.
shortcut though. Like for you to start your own business after having 2.5 years experience, obviously you can work hard. But there's so much to learn and there's so many mistakes you're gonna make, and there's a financial implication to that. And at the end of the day, that person has to be willing to go through all of that and still be successful. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think that there's some shortcut,
Yeah,
there's a system, or they can kind of ride somebody else's coattails or figure out what spreadsheet you have that's going to get you all the answers, and that's not always the case. It's just about putting in the effort and not taking shortcuts and doing the right thing and the next right thing.
exactly. Exactly. You got to operate with integrity. Every day, all of us experience situations where your integrity is called into question 100 times a day. It could be the simplest thing to the biggest thing, right? Um, and you just have to do the right thing. That's all there is to it. Because once you start not doing the right thing, it snowballs, right? It just snowballs, and you can start making excuses for anything that goes wrong, and then you
the
lose
the
your
the cover
accountability.
up.
Of course.
Mhm.
constantly, right? And a lot of that is a feeling of entitlement or ego or whatever it is. Like I've worked so hard, I deserve this. No, just, keep working hard and you'll get what's coming to you based on what you're putting into it. Chances are very likely that that's the way it'll work out. I mean, it's not easy, in those years oh my god, I was out at least 5 nights a week, going to this dinner or going to that event, spending $250 to get a ticket to go sit at a table and be at
You're
an
saying in the
event. And,
beginning?
in the beginning, and even up until about, 3 years ago, three,
When you
four
met
years ago.
Nick.
Yeah, when I met Nick, it all changed.
I never got a $250 dinner. I'm
It
definitely
all
taking you up on
changed. Yeah, it all changed.
that.
But seriously, you'd be going to these events like these fundraisers and things like that. We're gonna an auction to raise money for a silent auction to raise money for X or Y, and I'd buy a ticket because if I wasn't out there meeting people through friends of friends or whatever the event might be, there was no direct connection with any of these people. So they didn't know who I was and they didn't know what I was doing or what I was capable of doing. Right. And you can back in the day, you could flip through a magazine and see an ad and say, "Oh yeah, that's really nice. These people, they paid some money to be in this magazine and they've got a beautiful picture and they're an
But
interior
who are
design
they?
firm." But who are they?
Right.
Right?
This is my, and I know we've talked about it, but this is my, and listen, the people that are in print in the magazines that I know, like I love what you guys do. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
not
all
for me.
great.
And I've
It's all
taken a
great.
very
Me either.
yeah, very different path with marketing. And this is, we talk about this constantly. It's like, how can you expect someone to buy something from you when they don't know who you are? And not
Yeah,
saying that they won't, but it's a much harder sell when it's like just product, 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 and or it's like a print ad. It's like, who are, like, who am I talking to? You just did
right,
a video for your firm, which is,
right.
first off, fantastic. But secondly, it's like this is
Thank you.
like an opportunity for you to humanize who you guys are and make that deeper connection. Where it's like, yeah, up until 3, 4 years ago, you were at all of these events because they needed to know who Michael Ferzoco was. Like
Right,
they needed to know who you were and what you did and what your firm stood for. And now it's
right,
like we live in a very different world, whatever, post pandemic, whatever we're in now. It's like, well, how else can I put myself out there? And it's of course social media, it's of course video, and it's the opportunity to kind of peel the curtain back a little bit and be like, hey guys, like I know you know who I am, but like, do you really know what we do? And do you know that
exactly.
like we won't like, and this actually is something I wanted to bring up earlier, but like there is this like walk the walk, talk the talk thing where it's like, all right, if you're gonna be the premium interior designer or the premium builder or the premium contractor, it's like, and you're gonna have a minimum project size based, 6 figure. We keep going back to that, but like, I'm curious at how how does that have to run through like everything that you do? And maybe try to rephrase that question. Like you talked about being in France and how everything was about design
Yeah,
and everything was like centered around that. And I think about interior designers and the aesthetic of what you do, but also like what you look like. And this is like the, maybe this can come off as like superficial, but like I think it's a very real thing where it's like, you have to dress that part. If you
yeah.
want to be the clean cut builder, you got to be clean cut.
Clean cut.
You want to be you want to be the rough and tough log cabin dude. Yeah, be the rough and tough log cabin
Yeah,
dude. But I like, and I think a lot of people, I don't think enough people give that enough credit. Where it's like when you are going to be in that premium realm, you got to be showing up to the galas. You got to have a
yeah,
nice, pressed button down shirt. And it's
right.
like, and it's not because like you're trying to fake something. It's no, these are your potential clients.
Of course. When I was in the corporate world, I didn't show up to work in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or a pullover sweater or something.
Well,
I
no,
had to
you're
wear a
not in
suit,
tech.
but no, seriously, I had to wear a suit back in the day, right?
Right.
Every day you wore a suit. That's just the way it was because you were appealing to a certain genre of people, a certain a certain person that was looking at you. I'm 26, 27, 30, whatever, and they're looking at you and they're evaluating you constantly, thinking,
Even
Is
subconsciously.
this, yeah. And, is this guy, eventually it comes back to, when it's time for reviews and time for raises and time for, promotions, right? Who is this guy? Is this guy playing the role already of what we need him to be in this next role, right? So, people at these gala events and these fundraisers or whatever, or, going to dinner with a friend who has a friend who's an architect who I've never met, and this is a good opportunity for me to get in front of this architect. And it sounds opportunistic, but hey, I'm growing a business. I was
Right.
on
That's
15
part of it.
15, 18 hours a day, right? You're on, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. And you're just trying to relay to people who you are, because if they don't know who you are, if they don't know you exist, they can't use your services,
Right.
right?
And
And
I also think it like this is a good tie to, luxuries in general, where it's like, yeah, it's not you don't necessarily have to have a particular car. Like,
yeah,
if you can't afford a Mercedes, don't buy a Mercedes. But if you
right,
can afford a Mercedes, it might do you good by driving a nicer car that opens up a conversation with someone else that can afford a Mercedes.
right,
And if
right,
that's your client, I heard this thing
exactly.
the other day, and this is going to sound ridiculous on this podcast, but they were talking about watches,
Yeah.
and this guy is talking about he bought a watch for $300,000,
Oof.
and he's like, but it's no, he's like, it's an investment. I can turn around and sell this for $400,000 tomorrow. It appreciates.
Yeah.
But the point of buying this is the opportunities that it brings up. Where it's like I have a $300,000 watch on, and I'm out to dinner, and someone looks over, and the right person's going to look at me and say, that dude's wearing a $300,000 watch.
Let's jump them. Deal is
exactly
locked.
where
Let's
exactly
That's
where
get
I
him.
was going
that's
with
where
that.
my head's
But no,
going,
it,
and then
it's
I
like,
can sell
hey,
it for 400 grand.
Hilarious.
I didn't
Hilarious.
even think of that,
Oh
Tyler.
my God. It's so funny. That's
but
just
it,
great.
but and it's an extreme example. Like I get
Yeah.
that, but the point is like you if when you it go like more relatable. I think is like Tyler and I like we don't live in homes that we renovate and build homes much nicer than we live
Yeah.
in, and like because like we don't have the time, like the
Yeah.
shoemaker, whatever,
Yeah, I'm there
don't
with
have.
you, Don't
But it's
I won't finish my place because people are gonna come over and they're gonna be like, "That's the sofa he chose," or "That's the
but that
wallpaper," or "That's the
but
why is," and it's like,
but I
I
think
if
it's
it's a work in
important too.
progress, they can't judge,
Well, fair,
True.
fair. Mine's
right?
not even a work in progress right now. It's just literally a
It's
dump.
just work.
Just work. Um, but I do have a funny story about that. But like ultimately, like Meg and I decided, like, hey, we're buying this new place. We are designing our dream.
There you
Like
go.
we're designing it, and if and when we can afford it, we will do it. And there's no part of me that said, like, in my mind is saying we'll never do this. It's like, no, we're doing this. It's going to
Yeah,
cost
right,
us more money than we've ever had, but I want to live in the product that I built, because
right,
that further like stamps me into understanding like what my product is, and that I live in it every day, and then a client can come by and that like, hey, look at yeah, this is our house too.
right,
It's not like, hey, don't come over my house, it's not done. Like,
right,
well,
of
why not?
course.
Like, do you not
Yeah,
believe in
why
that?
isn't it finished? Yeah,
The funny side story is we are designing it, and we're supposed to be starting this renovation in a year.
yeah,
And Meg finally and I were like talking, and she's like, "Can we just do like some minor upgrades to just make this place a little bit nicer to live in?" So I'm like, "Sure." She's like, "Can we just paint all the walls white, hang some art?" I'm like, "Totally." So we've been doing it at night. So like the kids go to bed at 9, so we're like from 9 to midnight painting. And she was priming the walls. I'm like, "Why are you priming?" She goes, "Because so the paint sticks." I'm like, we're not priming. I am saving that. Like, I don't care if the paint sticks for that long. So we painted everything white, and then before I left for this trip on Saturday, she's like, "Can we just renovate the bathroom?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can." And got some white paint. I went to Home Depot, got a vanity. I got a new toilet seat. I got And she bought vinyl sticky tiles to go over the floor.
I love it.
4.5 hours, looked like a brand new
New
HGTV
bathroom.
bathroom.
New
Yeah.
bathroom.
And
Beautiful.
Meg came in. She goes, "Are you painting the tile white?" I'm like, "Yep." I'm like, "It's already been painted tan. Like, it's
That's
just we're
fantastic.
updating it." And we have a tenant downstairs, and she came upstairs, and she was like, "Oh my god, this looks awesome." I'm like, "Slow down. It looks
It
good.
looks
It looks
really good.
much
Right.
better, but this is not good." But it is funny, like, Meg. Oh, I got a new mirror too. That's the other thing. But Meg's like, "This is just so much nicer," and I'm like, "All right, like, cost me $400." I'm
Yeah.
like, to live in
Simple.
this for a year, like that, it makes our life more comfortable. We hung a bunch of artwork, and it's like, and I jokingly, I was like, you know what? Maybe we'll just why do we don't need to renovate? And she's like, seriously? I'm like, no, Meg, I'm definitely kidding. I'm not leaving vinyl sticky tiles because I'm telling you right now, 6 of these are gonna come up next week.
Next
Like
week.
they are not
Exactly.
sticking.
Because you
Oh
didn't
my god.
prime.
Oh
I
my
did
god.
not
Because you
prime.
didn't prime. Exactly. Touche. Right there.
But
That's
I think,
hilarious.
but like the luxuries, and and it's, I don't mean to do, and I it's not meant in a way like you have to go out of your way to buy luxuries and like put yourself like in a position where you can't afford it. It's not about that. It's more about like finding a way to position yourself to be part of the market that you want to attract.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
you're constantly working in that vein, right? You're constantly working in that vein. And sometimes after a while, um, it becomes almost an unconscious effort, right? It just becomes the new habit, the new way of being. I mean, people, you aspire to a certain thing, right? So I'm hungry and I want to eat something really good, and I could go to this nice little cafe down the street, or I could go to McDonald's or Burger King, right? And at different times in my life, or at different times under different circumstances, each of them could probably taste really freaking good, right? But and you're probably going to get super efficient service, and everything, right? But you're going to get a different product, and you're going to get a different experience. So it's not only it's not only what we're bringing to the table, but it's the experience that we are all providing, or that we aspire to provide to these clients, right? Whether it's a small addition and a kitchen renovation that's going on, or it's full on house, right? New house, existing house, gut job, whatever it is, soup to nuts, renovation, interior design, interior decoration. You're providing them with a certain experience, and it costs a certain amount of money, right? And you want them to believe and have the confidence in you that you are going to deliver on that experience. So that goes back to, how you're presenting yourself,
Nick, I
right?
I think it was when we had Patrick Ahern on the podcast, and he said that he basically started showing up for town hall meetings in Martha's Vineyard, and like being a prominent figure in the Martha's Vineyard neighborhoods that he wanted to work, but like didn't even live in Martha's Vineyard. And it was basically just trying to like be prominent in this area and expose himself. And he's like, if there's a town where you want to work, you should move there. And,
Yeah.
like, I'm, like, thinking to myself, "Why would you wanna expose it?" Like, every time you go to the grocery store, you're gonna see your customers, this, that, and the other thing. But he's like, "No, if you want to get your name around town, you want to be the person in that town that everyone goes to for work, like, you have to live there. You have to be involved with the community. You have to have your
Yeah.
kids in school, and that's how you're gonna network and make the connections." And it just ends up being whatever crowd you want to run with. You may luck out and just happen to kind of somehow find your way into that crowd, but chances are more than likely that you got to pay to play, and you got to figure out how to get in there, and in one way or another, like you have to play the part.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
just
100%.
like Patrick, just showing up to that constantly, like even if he wasn't involved, it's like, there was this thing I saw the other day, and it was how to become like they were talking about like being a local celebrity and like what that means in different areas. And it's the same exact thing. It's like
Right
you want to
on.
be known around town, go to the same restaurant over and over and
All the
over.
time.
And then when you go in there, they know who you are. It's like
Right.
you get your coffee from the same person over and over and over. And all of a sudden you become everyone knows who you are. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I build homes. Oh my God, my neighbor wants to build a home, or my cousin wants to build a house. It's
It's
like
funny.
you're positioning yourself to be known, and
Right.
it's a choice, right? Like not everyone's comfortable with that, but like if building a business, that's what personal brand is building
Exactly.
a brand around who you are and becoming known in the community in which you want to build or work.
100%. 100%. You never know where the work is coming from, right? You never know who's referring you. You never know who's going to suggest that you talk to this one, or that somebody calls you for a particular job. And back in the day, we used to. I was always of the mind that I'm trying to grow this business. I'm trying to get it to a certain level. And, back to your point, Nick, about, how do you do that? What were you doing in the early days? I would take anything because I had no idea who that 35-year-old guy was going to become, or that 30-year-old woman. Who is she going to become in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years? She might have only a $25,000 job for me right now, this little project, but she might have a $250,000 job for me in a few years, and then a $2 million job for me 10 years from that. You're building relationships, right? Or I don't know who she knows, but I'm gonna do this $25,000 project for her, to the same 110% that I would do, the 250,000 at the time, the $250,000 project for my biggest client, right? Who I was really trying to impress. But you got to give that person, the other person, the same amount of consideration and the same amount of attention and concierge service, because, hey, a friend of hers or a colleague of hers might be a much bigger fish, and you're just looking for a referral, right? Growing your business
But even to
and
that
putting your personal thing out there, right?
Yeah, but to that same point, it's like if if that person is just a average everyday person, the chances of them knowing somebody on that level that you want to work is much different than if you're working for somebody who's in that like upper echelon where now
Yes,
all of their friends are in that same upper
100%.
echelon. And it's the same thing that we're saying where it's like if you want to get to that point, you need to surround yourself with those people because there's a chance that they may know somebody or in 5 years. And that's like the risk and the sacrifices that you have to take when you're first starting your business. But as
Yes.
you grow and you establish yourself and you start working your way up through the classes, and you get to that level, now it's like, well, no, she has 10 friends who are on that level where we want to be, rather than
Absolutely.
like her second cousin's aunt may be super wealthy and become a referral. You just up like you get luckier, you know?
You got it. It's, hard work, perseverance, consistency, right? You got to be consistent.
I
You
might go get a suit.
I want to see you in your
Take
stories in a
take off
suit.
that cap, get a
Painting in a
suit.
suit.
It's just to go back to what your dad said about like the harder you work, the
You got
luckier you get. It's funny how so many people think that you work really, really, really hard and then you're done. Like then you make it.
right.
You hit your luck and then you're done. It's like no, what you just said. It's consistent. Like this doesn't just go away. Like it's very rare for someone to just work really hard and sell their company for $100 million. Like that's not that's while it might seem like the norm today because of all the media it gets, it's
Yeah.
not the norm. Like the
No.
majority of us are going to work really, really hard for every dollar that we earn
Yeah.
until we're done.
Exactly.
You
Until
know,
we're done. Until we want to rewire, right? Not
mm.
necessarily retire, but rewire.
Ooh, I like
There are,
that.
you know, there are other
I'm not
things.
retiring. I'm
It's
rewiring.
true because
Rewiring.
those people who sell those companies typically, they're, oh yeah, I'm going to retire, and then it's like a month later they have a new job or they took a new
Yeah.
position.
Right.
Michael,
But
I'm
like you
coming
said
to
about,
your rewiring party.
come on, man, it's going to be big. It's going to be fun. Well, like Tyler was saying about you earlier, Nick, you this is not the end all be all for you. You're having a great time. You're giving something to the community at large, right? To your
Mm,
employees, your colleagues. You're providing them with this experience. You're providing your clients with this experience, and you're moving forward, and you're growing this business, right? And there's a lot of giving back that goes on in that respect, right? Um, but there are other things that you can do. I've always felt the same way too. This is amazing. I feel so fortunate and so grateful to have been able to do what I love and always wanted to do since the time I was a little kid, and what I always wanted to do for the past 15, 17 years, right? And it would be great to have a couple of more years at it at least, and and then bow out, right? Because there are other things that I would really love to do that I know I won't be able to do with having this business, which is a 12 or 14 hour a day thing for me as the business owner. Um, so it's not about like, oh my God, I'm going to work until I'm 65 or 70 years old and then I'm going to retire. It's like, no way. I don't want to wait that long because there are other things I want to do that are going to take a lot of time and attention and devotion, right? And I got to rewire. I'm not going to retire.
It's
And
true.
hopefully this business continues. Somebody maybe takes it over, somebody from within, somebody from outside, I don't know. But you feel like you've done your part, you've contributed, you've provided this livelihood for people, and this this mentorship opportunity to help them grow and help them become whatever it is that they want to become. Um, and you gave back. It is about that as much as it is about the money, for sure.
I also do want to note one thing that I kind of loved hearing you say is that you think that there should be, formal training and education with what you're doing. And I'm not a huge advocate for formal education, but I do think that, especially with everything that we kind of see on TV and what is kind of said to be interior design in air quotes isn't necessarily the case. And there's a lot of people who hop into your industry and they all of a sudden they're interior designers because they did their own house and they got it photographed. And
Yeah,
it seems as though it's similar with our industry as well, where the barriers to entry are just not that high, they're not that steep.
right.
And I think that a lot of people could really benefit from formal training and understanding spatial layout, and even from a commercial aspect where it's just like you're experiencing stuff that you wouldn't experience if you're just going to go work for somebody or kind of start your own thing right off the bat. Because I think, and I guess I thought of this initially where you're hiring people who are doing design through decorating and furnishing, and it's like you have to have somebody who understands formally like the training, the software that it requires to be drawing things. You have to have somebody with an eye for what you're doing. They have to have the actual artistic talent. And then I
Yep,
think those people also have to understand traditionally what works and like kind of borrow from the past and not necessarily reinvent the wheel, because I think with a lot of stuff with houses, if it hasn't been done so far, there's probably a reason for that.
yeah,
So, that there's a lot that goes into what you do. And it's not just, hey, we bought a fixer upper and I did my kitchen and got it photographed.
right on. It's so true. I think, and as I said, it doesn't, maybe it's not a full-on bachelor program, right? 4-year program. Maybe it is a certificate program, but if you're really passionate about it, you'll want to learn more
Yeah,
about it, right? And you'll be exposed to things that you didn't even think of, for God's sake. You didn't even know that you didn't know them. And
exactly.
and then you'll realize, if you can admit it to yourself, wow, there must be so many more things out there that I need to learn. My God, after all this time, like I said, we're still learning. We learn from every project. We have we have a project review mid project where, um, once all of the materials and fixtures and finishes are selected for a construction project, let's say, we know that we're the budget is a certain amount and there's a certain percentage markup in there, and we've got a certain percentage profit, right? And now the hammers start swinging and the project starts. And as we all know, there's always something that comes up. There's, maybe a $500 item there, and there's a $5,000 correction over here. And maybe those things can't be charged to the client. Maybe, you know, you're sucking up that money, right? And it's cutting into your profit. So at the end of the project, let's have another project profitability review and see how those numbers compare. From the beginning we thought we were going to get X, but here we are at the end, the project is closed out and we're at Y. What is the difference and what happened? Let's review it, let's discuss it, let's figure it out, let's figure out where we went wrong and make sure that we learn from it, and not, hopefully, Christ, not repeat it again. Sometimes that's not always the way, but that is the utopian idea, right? But at least you're reviewing things and you're admitting your mistakes and having a reasonable adult professional discussion about it, with the team collectively, um, so you can move forward positively.
Which is also important because I think that a lot of times the hang up between the designer and contractor or builder relationship is that the designer is getting paid no matter what. Like, and
Yeah.
there's no there's no recourse on your end if you design something that's unbuildable or that fails. And the fact, that you're saying that you make a mistake and you go make right on that mistake or pay to
Yep.
have it fixed. If there was that relationship going in, I think a lot of builders would feel different about using an architect, a designer, a decorator. But a lot of times it's just like, a lot of designers are just hourly and they're getting paid. And if you need me to come to the job site to draw something out with you, even if it doesn't work, I'm logging hours right now.
Yep.
And the fact that you're holding everyone accountable and kind of cognizant of that investment that your customers are making and what, bears on the contractor with that is very important to note.
And that's
Yeah.
really, to go back, like that's a setting expectations about the collaborative approach that you want to take up front,
Right.
where it's like, this is not me coming in logging hours or designing something. I want to be part of what the ultimate goal is. And that's what I that it's the same for us. Like we want to be involved very early in design. And a
Yep.
lot of that time is my time that, is completely unbilled. And
Unbuild.
it's just, I just want to be at the table. So as these discussions are happening, I can at least be an asset to, hey, that's not buildable, or
Right.
hey, we've done that and it hasn't worked, or hey, we've done that and this is a better approach. Like
Right on.
being, like you said, collaborative. Like that's it. Really, it's unfortunate that it's drifted so far away from collaboration. But I do think that, especially with the amount of conversations around it, it's, we're starting to see this, return to collaborative approach. Whether you want to call it design build or just a collaborative team effort. Like there's a lot of power behind that, and and like I said, you set those clear expectations up front, and it can be really successful for the entire team.
I think so too. And it's proven to be in the past few years for sure. And those reviews are internal, they're external, and a part of it is just, again, holding yourself accountable, making sure that everybody on that team is holding themselves accountable and can raise their hand and say, hey, this was me, this was my bad. And I know that, I'm willing to step up and do what needs to be done to make this right. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, we're sharing in that expense because, was there something that we maybe miscommunicated or something that, it's not fair that one entity is taking on so much of the responsibility. This is a team, right? And you gotta stand with people and be supportive of people, right? Because we're not all operating in a vacuum here. We're all operating together, right? And we're human. Mistakes are made. It's not a big deal. It's just, it feels better when people are just able to say, Jesus, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
or oh my God, I didn't see that note in the drawing, or we drew something and the contractor is calling us and saying that can't be done. This isn't what we discussed. You guys presented this to the client, and the client is expecting a certain thing. Somebody's got to go tell the client that this
Yeah.
isn't going to happen.
But also, like, understand, like, that when I say set expectations, it's like that has to be communicated that that's okay to talk about.
Yes,
Because
right on.
a lot of
Absolutely.
people, like builders and
Yep.
designers, they'll read your detail and be like, "Ah, fuck that guy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing that." Like, or
Yep.
like, we can't do that, or they try and they fail at it, where it's
Yep.
like, because there's or even worse is like with the client, where it's like, how did you miss that? Like, your job is not to miss it on the drawing. It's like, I understand. I'm fully aware of that. I missed it. Like, I'm a
Yep.
human.
Yeah.
Like, we don't operate at 100%. No one does.
Right.
But you know, and that's where the fear comes in, where it's like, I don't want to go back and like question it because I should know this. I'm supposed to be the professional. Where it's like, no, like, have a little humility and just ask the question, because you're
Just
going
ask the
to end up
question.
with a much better result if you just
Right
ask the
on.
question.
And you got to save yourself a lot of time
Yeah.
and angst,
Yeah.
right?
I think even just having somebody on your team to kind of share that accountability with, and that responsibility when something goes wrong, and it's not even the financial impact of it, but when shit hits the fan and you have a designer show up to be like, "Hey, let's take some time and sort out what we need to do to get this right." Like, just having somebody there that's kind of going to bat for you and has
Yeah.
everyone's best interest in mind goes a long way.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to, like, screw something up, feel badly about getting screwing it up, and then get blamed for it, and then just be like, "Oh, you
Oh,
gotta
it's
figure this
awful.
shit out now. That's on you."
No, it's awful. No, you can't just leave somebody hanging like that. You're in it together. You've been collaborating from the very beginning, and all of a sudden you're at the very end of something, a very end of a project, and something happens. I mean, it is what it is, right? We're not saving lives here, right? We're just not. You got
Yeah,
to put it in perspective, and okay, I apologize. I'm sorry. There was a mistake. Whether you're talking to the contractor, the interior designer, the architect, the tile installer, the painter, whoever it is. You just got to do it with respect, and you got to realize that most everything is reparable. It's just stuff.
I know. I just said that to somebody the other day where they took their first family vacation in how many years because they can't get away and customers have deadlines and want people in, and I'm just like, "Just go away and have like, enjoy yourself."
Right.
We're not, like, operating on people. We're not curing cancer. We're not saving
No.
lives. Like, if somebody misses a Christmas in their house because you can't hit a deadline, like, hopefully they have a lot more Christmases to get in there. It's just,
Yeah.
like, the pressure that we put on ourselves and that we allow customers to do to us at some point. It's just like you have to have that mindset where it's like, listen, we're working on houses.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you're gonna
Do you
live.
guys
If it's a week later, 2 months, like, you're still gonna live. You're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be fine.
Do you guys feel, to that point, Tyler? Do you guys feel that the pandemic has helped that situation for everybody, or has it
No
made it
way.
that much more intense and people are like up your
I
ass
think
about?
I think it's helped me because I used to stress a lot about that, where it's like, I can't get this done at the or I'm gonna just get it done.
Yeah.
And now it's like I almost have the attitude where it's like nobody's being able to fulfill any dates, any lead times, and so I'm just like, I
Right.
can't do anything about it. I'm not going to lose
Right.
sleep about it anymore. So
Right.
it I guess selfishly helps me kind of lessen a lot of that anxiety where it's like this is just the way things go now, and I it's out of my control.
I
Yeah.
think from an anxiety standpoint, I would agree with Tyler, but from the client's perspective, I think the clients are worse with their expectations now, or the demands, like, behind scheduling to get in people's homes, where it's like, you can come to my house, but it's only between Tuesday and Thursday between 9 and 12 o'clock, because I don't
Oh
want to
my
be in the
God.
house with some when you guys are here. And
Right.
it's
Because of
like,
COVID and what
right,
have you.
and
Yeah.
All
it's
right,
like,
well, I'm charging you a full for a full day
Right.
because like I
Exactly.
still
Okay. But it's funny because on our end, with product, especially not necessarily building products, tile, faucets, things like that, but certainly appliances and cabinetry. There's a backlog, right? There's long lead times. But when it comes to furnishings, so you talk about like I got to get in my house. You know, it's Christmas, or we're having the 40th birthday party. My wife's 40th birthday party is in 3 months. You know, we've from the very get go, we've been managing expectations with okay, they say it's 36 weeks for your sofa. How they know it's
Yeah.
36 weeks? I have no idea. Like after 4 to 8 weeks,
After
how do
2
you possibly
days.
know? How do you
Yeah.
possibly know that, back in the day when they used to say it was 8
Hey, check the
weeks for a
whiteboard.
piece of furniture or
36? All
something,
right, yeah,
it's
it's
like,
36.
yeah, 36, yeah, let's just say it's 36. How could anybody know that it's 36 weeks out?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a ridiculous time frame, right? So, we always say to clients, look, you're going to get the furniture when you get the furniture. We're ordering it as quickly as you decide on the pieces that you want, right? Within a week, it's ordered. Um, so it has given us a little bit of relief because uh, from the very beginning, we're just laying it out there that there is no guarantee that you're getting any of this on any particular day, and we'll provide you with temporary stuff if it's that important and you need it to be able to move in because you got to move out of your apartment or whatever.
And,
But
and people just
there's no
like
guarantee. You may
demanding
be
things
sleeping.
too, you know?
That's part of it too,
It's
Nick.
like,
Yeah,
especially
that's
over
part of it.
email or text. I had a client we
Oh,
built a beautiful kitchen for. The disposal was a lemon because it just ended up failing. So we replaced it. Weeks later, he calls and he's like, "The disposal's you have another lemon. It's not working. I'm really frustrated. I was expecting to be able to use my disposal this weekend." I was like, I hope you understand
okay.
how ridiculous you
I've been
sound.
keeping all the scraps in the corner of my sink for 6 weeks now,
I
and I
was
was really
like,
hoping to be able to throw them down there.
I was like, okay, man. So I send one of my guys over there, James, and he calls me. He goes, hey, couple things. Number one, this kitchen's a mess. There's wine bottles everywhere, and number two,
Oh,
they dropped the wine bottle opener down in the disposal, and the spiral cork puller is jammed in it. So I was like, I'm just gonna say his name. Hey, Rob. Just so you know, your wine bottle opener was down in the disposal. We were able to free it up. Disposal's all set. Okay, the cleaner must have dropped it down there. I was like, no, the kitchen is a mess. Like you were
there you go.
obviously got
Yeah.
drunk last night and dropped the thing.
Right,
Like, dude,
right.
like,
Sometimes,
well, how
sometimes
about thank you for like taking your wine cork
right? A
opener?
little humility, a
Yeah,
little bit of graciousness and
yeah.
gratitude, right?
I
Goes a
hope he
long
listens to
way.
this podcast. Well,
We've all
Michael,
had those experiences,
oh my
right?
god, it's the same. Actually, the
Oh my
same one. He
god.
called me. He couldn't turn his fireplace on. I literally walked in the door home, and he texted me. He goes, "I can't turn my fireplace on. What the f?" I looked at Meg. I'm like, "I'm gonna be back in 5 minutes." Drove down. He was down the street from my house. Walked in, grabbed the remote, pressed on, flame up, started right up. He goes, "Oh, I didn't know I had to do that." I'm like, "Goodbye." I'm like, good. I'm done.
Oh my
Like
god.
I wasn't gonna deal with you texting
Unbelievable.
me all night about like how cold you were because the fire wasn't on. But
Of
yeah,
course. Yeah. The heat wasn't working, the fireplace isn't
yeah,
working. Oh my god.
yeah. We're
Right?
supposed to have a
This place is a
romantic
I was
night, and
really
mess.
you
What
hoping to
is
completely
set the
that?
ruined
I was
it.
really hoping to set the tone tonight.
Yeah, you know.
My rose petals are wilting. The
But
bubbles in the bath are deflating.
that.
Hilarious.
My
uh,
candle's halfway burnt, and my Michael Bolton CD's been on repeat for
no, it's got a
Oh
scratch in
my
96
it. It's got a
god.
minutes.
scratch in it, so it
It's
skips
been
on
on repeat.
track five.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Oh my
Well,
god. So
Michael,
fun.
I really appreciate you coming on, man. I know we scheduled this a while ago, but this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. It was great. Really nice talking to you guys. Nice meeting you, Tyler.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah,
Thanks for taking
nice
the time.
conversation. Oh, are you kidding me? Thanks for having me. I
Mhm.
appreciate it. Yeah. You guys are all fancy, with your podcasts and
Yeah.
your
Check out this
Well, we're
fan.
trying to appeal to a
Fancy.
fancy
wow,
crowd,
very
so
fancy. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
we just
Hey,
had a
you are
very
who you
serious talk.
associate with, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
we just had a very serious talk last week about how we're gonna up the production value of this. So
Yep.
just for the record, we have not done that yet.
Okay,
We'll
great.
have nicer
I get
backgrounds. You get the
oh,
shaft,
beautiful.
you know.
Beautiful. I'm getting the shaft. I'm on the
We'll have you
tail
on
end of
for
the
round
old
two.
production schedule.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back on. You have to
All
wear a
right.
suit though.
I was just gonna say I'll be in my suit and tie.
I'm gonna
Nick
just
and
Just
I
get
are just gonna
tux.
wear. No, all we have to do is get a shirt and a jacket. We don't. I mean, we'd
Oh
be
yeah, and
good.
just be in your
Yeah, work.
underwear
I got
otherwise.
work pants on.
yeah.
Oh,
Well,
you
we'll
went
see
work
in the
pants. I was thinking underwear like the news
Yeah,
anchors.
I'm trying to be appropriate.
All right, Michael. Appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
on,
guys,
man.
thank you very much.
We'll
Have a
chat
great
soon.
You
night.
too.
Be
Thank you.
well.
Safe travels, Nick.
I like that the one thing he touched on at the very end is like, as he's getting ready to wind down, he wants to pass it on and have someone else take it over. And that's like, and you can tell, like, I think a lot of his business background has really prepped him for that, where
Yeah.
it's like, it doesn't have to die with him. It can be, a business that continues and thrives without him.
I mean, even the what he said kind of in the beginning of the podcast, where he basically equated it to these young men and women that I'm hiring are my nieces and nephews age, and I'm thinking, if they were my nieces and nephews, and then my head goes, if they were my kids, how would I want somebody to treat them? And I guess we're
Yeah,
just not at the age now. I can kind of have that correlation with my kids in different situations, but not in the work environment because they're 8 and 5. But to think of it that way, where it's like, yeah, when my daughter's old enough to have a job, how would I want her boss to treat them?
totally.
And I think that would probably set you on a decent path to being a business owner and boss if you kind of put it in those terms,
Yeah, I like
unless you're a psycho.
that. Well, last week, guys, we announced that we were going to give away some merch, and that stuff is in stock. So we'll have a link in the description if you guys are interested in buying some merch. But we also said we'd give one away, and we got a review on iTunes. So if you guys want to be entered to win a hat or a T-shirt or something like that, head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and let us know what you like about the podcast or just a quick comment on how it's helped you. And if we read it at the end of each episode, you can email us info@themoderncraftsman.org to claim your swag. How many times did
Mm,
I say swag? Five?
no, I think only once.
Oh, two,
Um,
at least twice.
so we have a store set up through
We
Upstate
do.
Merch, right?
So
So
we'll
Dylan
drop the
at
link below.
Yeah, so Dylan at Upstate set us up with a store that basically you can go on, order whatever you want, whatever size you want, and they get shipped directly from them. So you don't have to wait around on us to get it to you. Because if you have to wait on that, you might be a different size by the time it comes to you. You know, who knows when
That's
that's going to
fair.
happen. So it
So
should be
this
nice and
week,
easy.
This week's winner, KCal1234. Listening and learning through yours and others' struggles is super insightful to anyone in any business. Everyone trips every day in unexpected ways, and as a project manager at heart, but currently in IT, it is very helpful for me to hear how you deal with them through your team meetings and retrospectives. It's all about people and getting things done, and the challenges are along the way. Thanks. So KCal1234, shoot us an email, info@themoderncraftsman.org, proving that that is you, and we will get you, and as well as your size and your address, of course, and we'll get you some swag mailed out.
No funny business. We don't want people trying to pretend that they're him. What's his
No,
name? Kel or her?
KCal1234.
Kel?
So it's kind of generic, but hopefully they hear this episode and email us. And before we sign off, guys, I just wanted to kind of throw out a selfish plug here. ContractorCoalitionSummit.com. Brad from AFT, Morgan from Construction to Style, and myself are throwing an event down in Nashville, May 1st through the 4th. It's a 2-day event. It's a pretty steep investment, but it's going to be jam packed with a ton of value. So head over to the website if you guys are interested. Contractorcoalitionsummit.com. See all of the talks that we're going to be doing over the 2 days. It's also going to be followed up with a bunch of documents that we're going to be able to share, really to help streamline your business from an SOP and business structure, but as well as a marketing structure. So check that out if you guys are interested. Would love to have you down there.
Sweet. Nashville's nice.
I love Nashville. Nashville's so cool.
Maybe I'll sign up.
All right.
I get a discount.
For you?